Welcome to the Newman Bond. My name is Austin Schwartz. I'm here with Matthew Umbarger, and
Hello.
Today we're having a special episode of The World Needs a Little Talk.
For the Newman Bond.
For the Newman Bond.
It's like a crossover episode.
It is. That's exactly what. That's the perfect description of this. Is a crossover episode. So those that are regular viewers of our show, you're probably like, wow, I already can tell the quality is so much better. I actually can hear them without a fuzz. I can clearly depict their faces. It's not a blurry image. And at this point, there's probably cool B-reel coming across the scene that mine's not so cool B-reel when I edit. But,
don't be fooled. We're still amateurs.
We are. But we have the special privilege of being invited to come onto the Newman Bond. So that's exciting. This is going to be... Even if, this isn't a great episode, this will be a great episode.
There you go. That's right.
But yeah. So, I guess I've referred to this. We'll jump to it and say, this week we looked at a graphic novel called The Fall by Jared Muralt. Jared
Muralt. Yeah.
Jared Muralt. He's French. That's why I'm butchering the name.
I think he's a French-Swiss guy.
A French-Swiss.
Yeah. I think his hometown is Bern, which is also important because that's where the comic book actually starts.
Yeah, that's where he takes place. So,
yeah,
he's European. And I also think that this is a translation. I'm pretty sure the original's in French because I don't know if you did, but I looked at the...
I think it's in German, the original.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I looked at the back.
Okay.
Where he gives his thoughts, and then there's a full interview that is documented back here. So...
Yep.
I got the idea that it was in French, could be German. Can't fact check that now because we're going.
He's from Switzerland. It could be either one.
Yeah, it could go either way. But
maybe just tell. So if people have been watching the Newman Bond podcast or videos and haven't really been following us, maybe tell them a little bit about what we've been doing thus far.
Let's complete this crossover.
Yeah.
So
because
for those of you that aren't used to following The World Needs a Little Talk, which is on Spotify and YouTube, what we do is we pick out an apocalyptic story, which most of ours have been novels, or this is our second graphic novel, but we've also looked at a couple of films. We've looked at poems, but pretty much we're looking at the apocalypse in any medium and just breaking it down and picking apart the story. So, and we've been doing that for what was this last school semester. So,
would you say this has been your favorite, this is your favorite genre, is post-apocalyptic, dystopian stuff?
I find it quite an interesting one.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is not my bag, to be honest. but it's been fun. I love talking about it.
Yeah, that's why we get to, we're pulling from different perspectives. So that was the idea of this whole thing was I'm a theater English major, and you're a professor of theology. So branching two different worlds.
And this grew out of a course that Austin was doing on British literature and theology, and so we made it an apocalyptic themed course, and it was interesting.
Yeah, and it's been fun. It has interesting
been fun.
Enough where we're here and we're still going. We got an invite.
We did.
Yeah. Now we have a producer for this episode. We have a full media team. Look at all these lights. There's multiple cameras.
We've hit the big time.
I know. If we ever have this, if I get us to this level, expect a year or a couple to go by before we're here. And when I say that, I mean maybe 2 cameras.
There's something to shoot for.
You'll have your own microphone at some point instead of sharing that little guy. But
the floor mic.
These lights though, these are never happening. I don't even know where you start on getting these lights.
Yeah. So The Fall. Okay, so this is the second graphic novel we've done. The first one we did was Watchmen. And Watchmen and The Fall have something in common. I wasn't fond of either of them. I'm not a fan. And I will say, this helped me appreciate Watchmen.
Oh, do you dislike this that much?
Yeah, I like this a lot less than Watchmen.
Okay, I'm excited to tear this apart then.
But you say you're very, like, you're pretty impressed with this. You're ready to read volume 2.
I enjoyed it.
Which hasn't been published in English, at least.
Yeah, not in English at least.
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading the back. He said that he planned to have this out sooner. But so the fall, it was published in 2019. And then his plan was to have volume 2 out by 2020, which is like quite the crunch time for doing comic books. So
he's doing it by himself.
Yeah, he's doing it by himself. He's the writer, the illustrator, the colorist. He's doing all of it, which is rather impressive, unless you're Umbarger and you don't appreciate Jared's work.
I'm impressed, again, kind of like Watchmen. I'm impressed by the technical ability on display here.
Okay.
He's obviously a great artist. Like, wonderful, intricate detail.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I can't fault him there. I will, just as from an art standpoint, everything is pretty, I know you're not going to get detail here, but everything is pretty washed out.
Be real.
There is no bright coloring on any of these pages.
Well, it's a dark story.
Yes.
You think it's intentionally dark?
Oh, I think so. It's like the coloring is very bleak.
Yeah.
Now, I showed it to one of my kids, and they said, "Oh, I love the color palette here." And I'm like, well, is there a color palette? But anyway, it's just like, anyway.
Is there a color palette as there's red, blue, purple, orange, yellow, all the same?
Yeah. But
I'm just kidding. I know what you mean.
The drawing is really spectacular. And the use of the way he tells the story through his drawing is impressive.
So here's something that's interesting.
Okay.
So if you just hold your book here and you flip through it like this, as you're flipping, it just continually gets darker and darker.
Yes,
and bleaker,
that's true.
Which, intentional, but also that's cool. But like, if you look at these front few pages when the story's just starting,
it's warm.
Look, there's color. It's warm. We have green. We have.
There's not a lot. It's not bright, but
It's not bright, but it's more colorful.
It's warm. A lot more yellows and greens. Of course, at the end we are in like Christmas in the Alps, so there's snow everywhere. So that's understandable, but yeah.
So, to connect, this is an apocalypse story, and how this apocalypse goes down is like humanity itself. It's what we're if you look at the back, it's like, in the wake of a worldwide economic, political, and social turmoil and a deadly pandemic in the summer heat, a city's falling into chaos, and then that just escalates into no society and
total anarchy.
Yeah.
But it's brought on by the summer flu, though. So you have this flu, this mysterious flu that is killing everybody. Okay, so we got to talk about this.
Of course. I found it fascinating that this was 2019 and a year later was COVID.
Was it? Okay, I gotta look at this. This is before COVID?
Yeah, this was pre-COVID when he came up with the story.
Because I thought he was just copying the COVID thing.
No, and then in his interview, he explains like...
Good grief.
Yeah, it's pre-COVID. And in the interview, he was like...
Well, that's half the reason I didn't like it.
Oh, you just thought he was riffing off of COVID this whole time? If that was the case, I wouldn't have picked out the book. I'm like, this is just a dude monopolizing on the sickness.
It's too close to home.
Yeah, well, that's why I do like it. It's fascinating that, he had no idea that COVID was about to hit. And he came up with this story where, this isn't anything absurd like zombies or robots or aliens or anything. This is just...
Yeah.
Life happens.
Okay, so This is one of my issues with it, since it's come up already.
Mm-hmm.
So even though, okay, it's impressive that he did this before COVID, still, it's, for me, especially comic books, if I open up a comic, it's an escape. Like, that's why I'm reading it.
Uh-huh.
I want it to be different from the world I live in. Literature in general, to some extent, but it's, fiction at least. But especially comic books. And this did not feel like an escape at all. This kind of like, I felt like I was kind of like, I don't know, it's a little claustrophobic, to be honest.
You spend most days feeling like you're on the run and fighting for survival. That's
But it wasn't different enough from the world I live in, or from the anxieties that I have about the world I live in.
That's what's so interesting about this, is that this was this was before 2020, and everything was spot on. And then instead of like the recovery we had, it just fell and kept going, because it's all the same things. It's riots, people buying out supermarkets for like people prepping because they're scared. It's tons of hospitals getting overfilled. It's there's a mask mandate. There's not toilet paper specifically, but
quarantine.
And a quarantine, and then it's just all of that is then taken to the next level from what we endured. So then it just all falls apart.
Yeah. It's too close to home.
That's fair. That's fair.
So what did you like about it? What's appealing about this to you?
You know, what is...
Because I have some other critiques, but I want to hear your...
Well, like, to me, like, I just feel like that it's well written, the pacing...
It's a very slow pacing, actually, don't you think?
It's there's points where it's slow pacing, and then it feels like it's just a complete jump.
Yeah, it was kind of confusing in places, because there were, like, stuff left out sometimes.
Yeah, like, sometimes you're just like, oh, wait, like, we're already here. And I feel like that makes up for the slow moments, because I feel like in those slow moments, it's all about getting to know the characters in this family. So,
do you feel like you got to know them?
Well, real quick, it's a dad, his daughter, and his son. And
how old do you think the daughter is?
The daughter,
she's a teenager, right?
I was guessing around 15.
Okay, all right. And then the boy is probably 10 or so.
Yeah.
And then and they pick up a baby.
They pick up a baby
right before they leave.
Become a family of 4.
Okay. Yeah, those are the main characters, and then they run into some other people. Okay, so one of my critiques about it is that I didn't feel like I got to know any of them really. Like I don't know.
I feel like we never really get to know the son. He kind of feels like the stereotypical like 10-year-old kid you're getting in a story.
He's just whiny.
The dad, I feel like we were progressively getting to know him better and better, and then story pivots and because I think you would agree there's a protagonist shift. The first, this novel feels like the father's the main protagonist. We're following him, and then it switches, and the daughter becomes the main protagonist, and we're following her.
That's true.
And we never really got to know her too well before the switch. We could tell that. We knew she was vegetarian, and then she had to adapt. She was forced out of that. She seems like very typical rebellious teen, slightly angsty, everything changing, and then it's like I feel like we get her. She grows up pretty fast. She starts to be in like they both recognize that their mom's gone. They no longer have a mother.
That's one of the first things that happens is the mother succumbs to the flu.
Yeah. So we, as readers, you never even get to meet the mom. You learn that she's a nurse and she's kept at the hospital.
She shows up in one panel in a kind of a flashback or
vision want. Yeah. So then you only get to see an image of her once. So the whole time, like we don't know who she is or.
I don't know. I think maybe the reason I felt like I didn't get to know them as individuals is because you only see them in crisis mode the whole time, and I felt like they're always responding to what's happening to them.
There's never a point in here where they finally get a little bit of reprieve, where it's like now we can. Yeah, that's that. So 'cause most apocalypse stories, it's survive. Here's a moment where we can relax and like get a glimpse of what like
catch a breath,
and like get a glimpse of like what just fun was again, or some kind of joy,
a bit of normalcy.
A little bit of normalcy, and even jumping back to this is the end that occurs when they decide to make Pineapple Express 2. Right. That was their little bit of normalcy.
I think that's why I love that scene so much.
In the Last of Us, which is similar in the fact that we have a father figure and a daughter figure. They're not related in that story, but we have those figures, and then there is a protagonist switch. But what we get in that story is little bits of normalcy. She finds like a little book, those books that are like 72 jokes or 72 fun jokes. She finds one of those books, and they like have a moment where they're just like get to like read it together, and they're laughing over, like, to us, if we have, like, no one really likes those books because it's like these are stupid, but for them it was like out of like years of chaos and anarchy and just trying to survive. It's a reprieve to read a book and be like, oh, that's a good. I can't think of any dad jokes at this point, but that's the idea is it's just those weird punny little dad jokes that are.
Yeah, so this one, that's part of the sense of despair in this is so relentless. It's not real. It's not real action packed, which. I appreciate that he's not like going over the top with. I mean, there's some pretty violent stuff in here, but it's not super violent. But it's just this sort of ongoing dread, and it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And he's unforgiving. Yeah. So
when he talks about that in the back in the little interview
I saw that.
But before you can. So I think that's him deciding on how to pace his, because in any story, especially apocalypse story, you want the audience to understand that this is bad, things are getting worse, and put you in a mind space where like it's you pity these people, you would not want to be these people before you can get to a moment of a bit of normalcy, because we're used to normalcy. So if you want an audience to witness normalcy and then find joy in something simple that isn't for them anymore, then you have to put them through the ringer to get there. And he talks about how Volume 2 is where we're going to get like that peace and normalcy. Okay. Do you look at the cover art in the back for it? Yeah. It's got your colors that you like.
I did see that.
It's very bright.
Yeah,
here we go.
It's springy.
Look at that. So springy and colorful.
Yeah.
It's all green and red. Bright. There's birds flying around. Look, she's got a little goat jumping up. The baby's older. It's a ginger.
Okay, so what else did you like about this? So here.
Sorry, I just noticed in that cover the little bits of darkness. First off, the machine gun's right
the
next
machine
to it.
gun is sitting right next to the baby.
In the very back, there's 2 crosses with flowers, probably graves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Well, we only know of one person that died, so that might be a bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah, I'm wondering
but
too.
we'll see. I'll see. You're done. It's okay. I'll continue and let you know where the story goes.
Yeah. I think he could still redeem it for me, but I don't know. It was. So my problems with it really aren't that it's just so bleak, but that has to. I mean, just personally, I'm like, man, I have kind of a melancholy streak anyway, and this doesn't help. But just with like self-care or whatever. But on the other hand, I was thinking this is about the tropiest graphic novel.
So that's what I was going to get to.
Okay.
This is what I don't like about it.
Okay, it is really tropey.
It's predictable.
Yes.
And it's unoriginal.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Muralt. I just called that out about your book, but it's predictable and unoriginal. And then, I mean, for standing by that, you're probably wondering, so what do you like about it?
Yes.
And I think we're getting to the point where I just enjoy apocalypse stories and graphic novels. I'm a sucker for comic books and apocalypse stories because literally nothing in here is original. It's all like literally. The second they're like about to do something or they think they're going to do something, you're like, well, this is how that's going to go and this is what's going to happen next. Like everything's the one thing that I didn't predict, well, one was them getting the baby, and two, the scene where they're getting the baby, a pack of 100 dogs showing up to eat them, which I liked that. Like a lot of these stories, like we only ever it's like what's happening with humans. You never like think about the fact that almost every American owns a pet dog, and that as things descend into chaos, these dogs they're gonna go back to their instincts. And wolves travel in packs. They're gonna create packs of their own.
And when they're starving to death, they get desperate.
And all of a sudden it's like
I had
I'm gonna bite the hand that's supposed to feed me because it's not.
In 1997. I went on a missions trip to Ukraine, and while I was there, I met a lot of Armenians. There were a lot of... So in the early 80s, there was a terrible earthquake that hit Armenia. And so there were a lot of Armenian refugees in the Soviet Union, and they went to Ukraine. And so after Ukraine became Ukraine, wasn't part of the Soviet Union anymore, they just stayed there. And I met this young lady who told me this terrible story about when earthquakes hit. And she said the worst part was the dogs. Because there was it devastated her city. And so in the months that followed, all the dogs formed packs. And like it was very much like this. So yeah, I appreciated that, and the way he built the tension there really nicely. It doesn't. Okay, so literally on the back page, just listen to this. He says, "Brace yourself for the international hit thriller, The Fall, Volume 1, an apocalyptic adventure akin to Robert Kirkman's The Walking Dead, with the emotion of Cormac McCarthy's The Road."
It's a lot to live up to. Both of those.
Yeah, just read those. That's my opinion.
Well, there's a lot of moments.
Better.
A lot of moments within this book. I was like, I feel like this is just The Walking Dead.
Yes,
because a lot of The Walking Dead is like, The Walking Dead. A lot of the time, the zombies are just like a B factor.
Yeah,
and most of the time, it's trying to survive, finding a place to stay, getting food, and then trying to deal with other people.
That's right.
And that's exactly what this is.
That's what made The Walking Dead interesting, is because it realized that, zombies aside, what's this going to do to society?
Yeah.
And it dealt with those interesting questions.
And so, the focus of that story never is on the zombies. Again, they're a B factor, which makes that a very interesting zombie story.
Right. It did something interesting to the
played out zombie genre. But anyway.
Until you got Walking Dead. Right.
Then was it played out?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like they
It was good until they ran it into the ground. Now it's a little played out. The
Now it's
Walking
played
Dead
out
itself
again.
is played out.
Right.
And then there's people still trying to keep it going in their own way.
So let's talk about some of the tropes. So this is not really science fiction in, like, we don't have zombies, aliens, but this is kind of, I'd say, like futurist social science fiction. But we have these tropes. So a couple of tropes that I just think are kind of ridiculous. So first of all, the idea that if something like this happened, everybody starts treating each other like animals. And I just don't buy it. I think like you have situations where you have like a mob or a riot or something. I know you took our Holocaust and its legacies course, and we talked about, some terrifying stories about what happened when the Nazis came into like Lithuania, right? And you had like normal church-going people all of a sudden doing terrible things to their neighbors because of, for the accolades of the mob, right? But that's not what's going on here. So this is assuming that like people really just suck.
Well, let me counter you.
Okay.
And I don't mean to get political, but think back to 2020 when these riots actually started. They started just burning down and raiding businesses, destroying buildings.
You're talking about the Black Lives Matter.
I said riots. I'm talking about riots.
Okay.
I'm not getting political. I'm talking about just how there were riots.
Sure. Okay.
And
there were some riots.
People would start burning buildings, breaking and entering, vandalizing, and stealing.
Okay. Right.
Without justification for it. Like these places had nothing to do with whatever they were talking about.
Sure. Right.
And then the government said, no, it's okay. It's okay. So if that behavior is being encouraged, and then this is probably the most realistic take on how the world would end if it's to end soon. Because we're falling in on ourselves. This is all cause of ourselves and of humans. Then, if it's even being coached and encouraged, then when this happens, it seems likely, just a little bit, that people are going to be too friendly.
I think we have a fundamental disagreement on like human decency.
I'm also just argumentative.
Okay. No, I don't think people suck this much. I think individuals do. So like I'm thinking about the veterinarian that they tried to get to tend to his wounded leg, and he's only willing to get the medicine in exchange for sexual favors from this young girl. It's pretty believable. Like, I know there are people like that in the world. The problem is every single person they encounter is like this.
Not every person.
Who's not like this?
Most people, not every person. Well, first, jump back to when they're sleeping in the barn, and then...
you have the people who have like collected the women as sexual slaves?
Yeah. Those people, bad. The women aren't. They team up with the women and kill those people.
You don't really get to know what the women are like.
Well, the women equally could have, saw that he's a man and decided, like, screw him too, and killed him, but they didn't. They recognized his kindness.
You are being argumentative.
And willing him to save them. Well, the true characters that show up later are when they first get there and their dad's, like, in a coma, that... what's her name? She's in it. But
the woman who feeds them
comes by.
The soup made out of human people.
Well, we don't learn that till later. We think she's, and plus she is being nice. She's trying to take care of her.
Here, have some human soup.
Yeah, but what's tricky is it never outright states that, right? You put it together from it being inferred later on. But then the people you do get are the refugees later that move in with them.
Yeah, but I don't know. You don't get to. I mean, with the little kid who just like blows away the soldier without like hesitation.
Yeah, to protect her after she shot him first. Survival.
Okay, so this is the thing, is like, I don't think, no matter how desperate we get, I don't think that we automatically like are going to cave into like these sort of animal instincts. Personally, you know, and that's based on, again, I'm sorry to bring so many personal stories into this. But when we lived in Israel, I worked with refugees from Sudan for a while. And you talk about people who had seen it all and had been in desperate situations. Similar situations to these in a lot of respects. But those people always treated each other with decency. Mm-hmm. There was not this sort of like, you know, I mean, when I met them, they were destitute and desperate, and but they were polite as well, and caring and compassionate, and yeah. So I don't think it, even if something like this happened, even if people are starving to death and having to eat cat food, sure, I mean, you can have ugly situations, but I don't think every single person's going to be like this.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Being accurate.
Yeah.
But
and he's not, he's just like, again, it's just a trope, because that's all, it's out there in all of this sort of media.
In most stories.
Yeah.
So, but what we do get is,
I'm just calling bullshit on it. I don't think it's really like that.
Our main three aren't like that. And we get all the time, like them, all these people they interact with that are like that, especially her, being like, why would you do that? Don't do that. Do this.
Yeah.
Help people. Why won't you help people? And trying to constantly be that person. So then what
but
this
by the end,
story,
she's kind of more
so
like
I was about to say what this story does, which typically we don't see because we like to root for nice people, is we see that all of this that she's gone through has started to change her.
Yeah.
Because that soldier like comes up to her and the kid and says, hey, we're actually the good guys. And I believe that. I think they probably were. They seemed like better people. And he was like, and then because he didn't attack them or anything, he was like, just stay here, stay safe, and you'll come back with us. Like, we're actually going to protect you. And then, bam, she shoots him, and then the kid finishes him off. And it was like, oh.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's pretty brutal. The other trope that I didn't appreciate. So it's a pretty anti-religious book. Did you pick up on that? So first of all, there's a few places like he says really kind of ironically, like this is I'm trying to remember. This is a gift from our gracious Creator or something when they have another bad experience. And then that's the only real mention of God until you get to the camp at the end. Mm-hmm. And then the uncle is, here's the next trope, the religious fanatic. Right? And he's dangerous, he's off kilter, and you shouldn't trust him because he is religious. And so that bothered me too. Like, it just, as a religious person, it's kind of a stereotype. Like, it's low-hanging fruit. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't mind an honest-to-goodness, well-earned critique of religious people. That a lot of religious people are scumbags. But this is just too easy. Like, just, here's a religious person. He's obviously a bad guy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, they also... I feel like we couldn't get a full perspective
On the uncle?
on the uncle. Because
Sure.
we were mainly we were getting his nephew and whoever his other guys were.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's true.
so the uncle, we couldn't really tell his true intent if he was a bad guy, because also he was in horror when they came back and had all these supplies and was like, that's not what you were supposed to get. That's like, I don't know where you got that from. Like, clearly it's not good.
He's in horror because he knows what's about to happen.
Yeah. Which
the people they stole the supplies from are going to come back.
Something else predictable.
Yeah.
What was absurd was it was literally the next day.
Yeah.
And they came in with it wasn't a tank, but an armored truck and some rocket launchers. And I was like, these two people went and stole from their actual home and facility.
Yeah.
And if they have all of that, they couldn't have stopped the two people.
I was thinking that too. It was, yeah. Anyway, no, but then okay. So again, the uncle, he's not very generous. He's not, he's separating kind of the sheep from the goats. Who gets to stay?
I guess he's making that call on his own.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's saying you guys all have to be in this refugee building, and everyone else is doing their own thing.
Yeah, he was slimy, and he has basically thugs in his employ.
Huh?
I didn't think he was kind of like a morally ambiguous character.
Yeah, but do you really know him? Or are you making a judgment call?
I'm making a judgment call. Yeah. And then you get some weird sort of sympathy for his nephew by the end, which also made me feel weird, too, just to be honest.
Yeah,
because
he was clearly not a good guy the whole time.
Right.
The only person he's nice to is her, and that's only 50% of the time. And for some reason, she's okay with it and still finds some kind of fascination or attachment to him.
Yeah. So that made me feel creepy too. So all of this stuff, I don't know. So yeah, great artwork. 2 thumbs down.
So, and toward the beginning, when their dad left to go and try find supplies, when they're still living in their actual home, they have a pet bunny rabbit.
Yes.
That they keep taking her,
Mr. Lewis.
That they're not being very cautious with for knowing the circumstances, and they bring him outside after they walk by their neighbor, who at this point seems crazed and they haven't seen forever, and they're just like, oh, and they go outside.
He's rummaging in their basement.
Yeah, and then he's the one that tells them to get lost, and they're like, okay, and they go outside.
Yeah.
And then
digging for potatoes.
And they go dig for potatoes, and they leave the rabbit 10 feet from the door in a cage.
Yeah.
And then they turn around after just witnessing.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, where'd the rabbit go?
Yeah.
I will say that was probably the most frustrated and angry I felt toward Jared's writing was anyone would clearly know. First off, even as a child, I don't think most children would be that dumb.
My rabbit's staying in the apartment.
Yeah. And then second, to even dumber to be like, oh, I wonder where he could be. I ain't got a clue.
I agree.
The dad wasn't even there and didn't witness anything. And the second he got home, he was like, I know where the rabbit is.
And then he grabs the hatchet to go after it. Which seemed like a little overkill to me. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
anyway.
It was a bit of overkill. But what I did, the question then that I begged was, oh, is he just going to have the kids eat the rabbit? Because I was like, this is actually a big pivotal point of means of survival. And then cuts to, and they're having rabbit stew for dinner. And
Yeah.
of course she's complaining about it. The kid goes, "This is the greatest thing I've ever tasted," and like showcasing like how
Yeah.
hungry they've been and how they haven't ate.
Yeah.
And
But she refuses to eat it.
so
But then later she laments that she didn't eat the rabbit stew. She's like, if I'd eaten you, Mr. Lewis, you'd be a part of me now, which also seems stupid to me. Like, anyway.
So I appreciated like the page that was them having the rabbit stew dinner.
Yeah, I like
So I
that
was
too.
like, that was good. What built up to that was not, but that was good.
Yeah.
And no, you didn't like the comment of, if I have ate you, Mr. Lewis, then you'd be a part of me. It's an optimistic way. It's looking at the brighter side, trying to be positive
Yeah.
during the dark
it was
times.
Yeah. I don't know. She was lamenting the fact that she's eating, she's not a vegetarian anymore. She's had to begin
You can't
eating.
be. Not in this world.
She's eating cat food to survive, and yeah.
I mean, really, who knows what's in that?
But yeah, I don't know. So you agree it's unoriginal
Yes.
and tropey?
Yep.
Okay. So we actually like agree in our assessment of it.
I think we do.
You just like enjoy it.
I
You
think
don't, like,
there's nothing special about it. There's nothing that I'd be like, it doesn't make me excited. Like if I get a good story, I am immediately like, who's the first person? Like whoever's the first person I see, I'm like, hey, and then
Right.
I'm like, da 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 da.
You want to evangelize.
Yeah. I'm like, this.
Me too.
This was so awesome. This was so cool. Let me just talk about it
Right.
forever and annoy you.
Because you get to enjoy it a second time doing that.
Yeah, and then.
But you're not doing that with this.
No, I don't think I've. I've mentioned to people I'm reading a graphic novel called The Fall.
And they're like, what? Is that right?
And that's it. I'm like, it's a graphic novel called The Fall. So it's about the apocalypse, post-apocalyptic world.
So-
So that's really all I share. So I guess I will say I like it, and after reading his story, I respect the author. I think I just have a natural inclination or appreciation toward art as a perspective toward an artist did put effort into this.
He definitely
So-
worked his tail off on that.
But I mean, at the same time, I still will dislike things. I will.
Yeah.
I guess so far I've liked everything we've looked at, but there are things that I dislike. There are stories that I'm
you
like.
didn't like The Omen.
Yeah, I didn't like The Omen.
I kind of liked The Omen.
Yeah, The Omen was okay. It was
Yeah.
5 out of 10. It
Oh,
wasn't bad, it was
neither of
okay.
us liked the story about the ice storm in London.
You
there
did
we-
get to witness me hate a story.
Yeah, that one
I
was
didn't like
awful.
it at all.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
I don't
Okay,
care how much effort
so-
the artist put in that one.
So with something like this, okay, if I'm going to invest in it, I don't mind if it doesn't have to be cheery and optimistic. I think you understand that about I don't.
Yeah.
In fact, some of my favorite things, I like Shakespearean tragedy way more than his comedies. I love his comedies too, but I don't mind reading something that's going to bring me to tears. This didn't bring me to tears.
No.
It didn't. It wasn't really kind of like Watchmen. There's not much emotion here.
I don't think anything that we've looked at has brought me to tears. We haven't looked at anything
No.
that's really pushed my
Me neither.
my emotional buttons. Maybe that should be a goal. We try and find something that actually
Something that can.
something so glum, without hope,
No,
but
see-
actually makes us cry.
Something that's really emotional. Okay. But see, I don't think you can get there with something so bleak.
I'll agree. Because jump
think-
back to on the back, we have with the emotion of Cormac McCarthy's
Yeah.
The Road. I'll tell you, The Road, I did not cry.
Okay.
I did not get emotional. It was just too bleak to the point where it's just excessive.
Yeah.
The Road's good. It's well written.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'll say that it's well written because you don't really from point A to point B. You don't get anywhere. It's just constant over your head. Things are worse. It is worse. It is sad.
A lot of people find the road to be deeply emotional.
I'm sure people do. Apparently, whoever wrote the synopsis here thought this was just as emotional as the road. But I did not find the road emotional at all. And that's only because it's written with a lot of emotion. And it's only because it's just repetitively bleak without a single sign of hope or grace whatsoever.
Interesting. So that's my thing. It's like, I don't mind if it's like maybe saturated with despair. I don't want it to be nihilistic. This feels nihilistic.
I knew it. Right before I came here, I was talking to Brendan, and I was like, Umbarger's exact words are going to be, "This is nihilistic." And I was like, I guarantee it. I'll let you know. And then he wanted me to tell you what's squanching. And
is nihilistic squanching?
Yeah, nihilistic. It's super squanchy.
Did you think it was nihilistic?
I felt like it had moments and there was points where I read something and I said, Umbarger is going to pull nihilism from this scene. That's it. That's what he's going to get out of this. So I think that's where we're at on understanding each other.
So if even something nihilistic I can tolerate if it's doing something interesting.
Like the Watchmen.
Watchmen, yeah. I almost felt guilty reading the Watchmen because the worldview is so different from mine. And it was messing with my head a little, and it's very deeply nihilistic. But the way he was doing it was so interesting. This doesn't get there for me, and so I could possibly see myself picking up the Watchmen again.
Yeah, the Watchmen.
Pick this up again.
The Watchmen. You were there flipping through the pages, and you were like, "I hope no one's around. I can't stop. This is good."
Well,
but this, you were sitting there reading, and then someone walked by, and you were like,
"It's obviously a classic. Watchmen is obviously I hate it." But it's obviously a classic because we keep talking about it.
You hate it, but you don't. You hate that you like it. You're the one that always brings it up. You're the one that always jumps back to it, talks about how there was this kind of guilty pleasure in reading that book.
I didn't say guilty pleasure.
It was inferred.
Admiration.
You're like, I could imagine myself picking it up again. Deep down, you enjoyed
talking to Dr. Dietrich and stuff. I've it's got interesting ideas.
But I
can't
agree
stop thinking about it.
Yeah. But no, I agree with you that the Watchmen I definitely look at again. Feel like there's always something to pull from that. Yeah. This, now that we've got through it, will probably go on my shelf and sit there for the rest of its days.
Unless he does something really incredible in the following
volume 2. Yeah, I guess so. Because I will still, when volume 2 is obtainable, I will obtain it.
If this is just set up for something really cool, then I can come back.
Then I'll take the setup. I'll take the build-up.
Yeah, because it is really slow. Maybe that's what's going on here, but it doesn't. It just feels kind of like, bleak and empty.
Yeah. Well, if this is setup, this is a lot of setup.
It is.
When something's setting up for something, I don't expect it to be this long. Peaky Blinders episode 1's a little bit of a, because it's all set up. But then by the last 10 minutes of episode 1, they got you. Yeah. You're in. You just had to get through that first 40 minutes.
That's interesting. There's not really a hook in this anywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
All the action is in the last 30 pages or so.
And the action feels abrupt and kind of forced. It's like, oh, of course, this is what's next.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It says it's an international hit. Maybe other countries like it more.
Well, Here's
have you met
how
anyone around here who's read this besides us?
I hadn't even heard of it until I accidentally stumbled upon it. So we took a shot in the dark. We took a gander. I was like, let's try and explore something. It says it's an international hit, but here's a true test. Hey, James, have you heard of The Fall?
James has not heard of The Fall.
He's shaking his head no. Real big right now. He's no clue what this is.
So next week, probably we're doing Tom and Jerry.
Everyone knows Tom and Jerry. I feel like this will be a good turnaround. See, maybe it's fun to explore. Sometimes but we learned that this wasn't that great. No one really knows what this is. Yeah. So maybe we pivot and instead of
to a real classic,
something everyone enjoys. Everyone knows the name. You say it, they immediately see the picture in their head of Tom and Jerry.
And specifically the episode, I can't remember the title of it, but the episode where Tom goes to hell.
Yep.
Right?
That's he goes to heaven first.
That's right.
And gets denied.
Yes, okay.
And then goes to hell. That's specifically the one I'm interested in.
Yes.
You're wondering what this has to do with the apocalypse? It doesn't. Or maybe we'll find a connection.
It does. No, it's about the end.
Yeah. Well, it's about the end of his life. And then we can bring that to a greater... But I find...
It's about the judgment.
It's about his judgment.
Yeah.
Specifically of Tom.
It's deeply theological.
It's a very deeply theological episode for just this childish, like, smack each other
It's bad theology,
humor.
But it's deeply theological.
But it's deeply theological. And I feel like it's just kind of passed over from what the rest of the show is, where it's just like, I smack you, you smack me, and we laugh. Like, that, and so it's deeply theologic and very dark in tone for what the show normally is. So
yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah. Weren't you thinking of another one as well, or a different one?
I can't think of anything right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, those are, I'll text you if I think of something else to fill up our time.
Good.
Because that is only like a 10-minute watch. So
yeah,
if there's something else, I'm sure there is. I'll think of other old cartoons or like 10-minute shorts or whatever.
Well, talking about tropes, I mean, going to hell is a trope in the old cartoons.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it happens in modern cartoons unless you're watching like The Simpsons or something.
Yeah, because...
And that's only like in dream sequences. And
I feel like that's
Halloween special.
A lot of, like just the progression the world's gone in of being like a lot more sensitive to things and wanting to be protective. Back then it was like, that was a cartoon for kids. And you're look at that, Tom's going to hell.
They weren't really cartoons for kids either. They were like, I think they were made for adults as much as for kids.
I think Tom and Jerry was made for a father and a son to sit together and then the son to laugh because, the cat got hit in the head by the mouse. And then the dad to be like, yeah, I'm going to be burning in hell like Tom someday.
Okay. So we'll do Tom and Jerry and it'll be good. And maybe something else.
We'll try. I bet we could extend a whole thing off that, though. I bet we'll find more to talk about in a Tom and Jerry episode
easily
than in this graphic novel. I'm feeling kind of upset. I'm a little sad. I feel like, there's normally so much more we can pull out of something.
There wasn't much here.
Normally we're chomping for more time. Like,
this is a dry sponge. Okay.
It's not even absorbing the water.
No. Any final words about it, Austin?
Well, let's do this. We normally don't do this.
Okay.
Scale of 1 to 10. How good was this? If you were to rate it.
Ooh.
Scale of 1 to 10, what's the rating?
Maybe a 3.
3. It's fair.
Yeah.
If I'm combining the story elements with the artistic value that a comic has, different from a novel, where you still have to consider the art and the panels. I'll give it a 4 or 4.5.
We're not that far off.
We're not. I'm gonna give it 4.5 because I'm nice.
Okay, so compared to Watchmen, I'd probably give Watchmen a 6.
You give Watchmen a 6? Okay. I'd give Watchmen
probably
maybe an 8 or an 8.5.
Yeah.
Watchmen's good.
Whereas This Is the End, I'd probably have given that like a 9.
Yeah. Not just weighing a full 10 out of 10.
Yeah, it'd be hard to get a 10 out of me.
No, it'd be hard to get
Lord
a 10.
of the World, I'd probably
say.
give it a 9.
Yeah, I'd say Lord of the World and This Is the End. I both deeply enjoyed in those episodes. I'd definitely give both of those a 9 out of 10. Those I was very invested in and enjoyed.
So the story about the snow in London, that's probably just a 1.
I will say, this is a higher rating than that. I actually sat down, read this, and it wasn't like, oh, is this gonna be done? That story of the snow in London,
that was bad.
That's a straight, I don't even know if you're allowed to. That's a 0 out of 10 for me. That story's an absolute 0. If I could go lower, I'd give it a -1. It shouldn't have been written. This, I respect the fact that he wrote it.
Yeah.
That's London story. I can't
even remember the name of the author.
I don't want to. I don't want actually, I do. I do regret not remembering his name, to not be able to look at everyone and say not to go read his stories. But I will not say that about Jared. He's a young and upcoming artist who's trying. I will say, if he has other stories, give Jared Muralt a chance.
But okay, the thing about the London story, in contrast to this though, is it was like doing something new. I mean, it was kind of like,
for its time,
cutting edge.
It was doing
Nobody
something
had really done ecological apocalyptic
Okay,
fiction.
The problem with this story is that it's not new. Right?
It's not creative.
If this came out before everything else, as the exact same as it is now,
right,
we'd be like, oh, this is really good.
But it's derivative.
So that's why this is bad.
Yeah.
That snow story was something original.
It was.
Something new.
It was terribly written, but
it was still bad.
It was still bad. I'll give that.
Still bad.
Yeah, I'll give that to you.
So I'll give that to this. It was that if it was earlier, if this came out, I don't know, 20 years ago, people...
Okay, here's another critique about this, Austin.
Lay it on me.
None of these people are really likable, are they?
I feel like the kid. I feel like the son is, only because there's no reason to like him or dislike him, and you're like, well, I can't hate on a 10-year-old who hasn't given me a reason to.
He's kind of like, it's kind of like other people's kids. I just found him at the
Just, you're a good kid.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I don't know. I don't see a reason to dislike the dad.
But there's not a compelling reason to really admire him either.
But he's trying to do everything in his power to protect his kids.
Without personality. Anyway.
He had personality. The second his wife died, he abandoned his kids and became an alcoholic. And then he had a turnaround after that. That's a full character development in a single page where we learn all that occurred?
Yeah.
He went through a full character arc in a single page, and we didn't get to witness it. But he did. He went through character arc.
Okay.
He's deeply devoted to his kids, and
he is.
So I guess that's it. There's the reason to like him. You don't really get to know him.
It's really, I mean, that's really what this is all about, is about what would you do to keep your family alive.
Yeah. You do anything. Because it's first him doing whatever he'll do to protect the two of them, and it switches, and then it's her doing whatever she can to protect the two of them, until she leaves her father behind in the house, and then they all leave with the nephew. And I don't know. She's a lot younger than him, but based off of this world and the way his story's going, they might have a kid together.
Yeah, maybe, but they already have a kid.
Yeah,
Let's take care of this baby. Yeah.
All right. Make more.
Well, thanks, Austin.
Thank you for tolerating the book I took a chance on.
All right. All right.
Well, that's it. I hope you found our critique very entertaining of the World Needs a Little Talk, featured on the Newman Bond. I don't know how to do a crossover tie-up, thank you for tuning into the World Needs a Newman Bond. The Newman Bond needs a little talk.
The
How's
Newman
that
Bond
one?
needs
that
a
one.
little
That
talk.
one sounds better. That
you go.
rolls a little more.
That's right.
The Newman Bond needs a little
The
talk
Newman Bond
about the
needs a
fall.
little talk. Yes. There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
So.
That was our tie-in. So thank you. The Newman Bond can be found at the Newman website. I do know that.
newmanu.edu.
Yeah, newmanu.edu. The World Needs a Little Talk can be found on Spotify at The World Needs a Little Talk. That's what we're called. Just type it into the search engine. It pops up toward the top, actually. I'm proud of that. That's cool. And then at YouTube at The World Needs a Little Talk, which is a subsection of my page called Austin Schwartz.
Like, what? I have no
I get a lot more blessings out of that.
really fun experience.
Really the Newman experience.